The Yorks of Erddig were an unusual bunch. From as early as the 1700s, they had a well-deserved reputation for being decent to their servants. But after almost 200 happy years, the household was shaken to its core by a dramatic series of events that threatened to destroy that friendly relationship forever.
In the early 20th century, Erddig was home to Philip York II and his wife Louisa, who loved to entertain, but struggled to cope running a stately home and managing the finances. When Louisa discovered that the household accounts didn't add up, she accused the housekeeper, Ellen Penketh, of stealing.
Penketh was arrested and charged with theft. Author Tessa Boase has written a book about the scandal, and she's taking me behind the scenes at Erddig to discover how the drama unfolded.
Here is this poor working-class woman with no people supporting her out there, ranged against the gentry. The jury was all male, it was middle class, you had to be a property owner to be on the jury back then.
A terrifying ordeal for anyone, never mind the lowly housekeeper. But the Yorks' rarely seen archive reveals that Penketh wasn't your average servant.
The portraits downstairs of the other York housekeepers, they're sort of hatchet-faced spinsters. And that's what they tended to look like. Housekeepers had to be fearsome and quite old on the whole to keep control of their servants. Ellen Penketh was young and she was beautiful.
How do we know that?
We know that because I found one photograph of her hidden away in this album. This is a family album put together by Louisa. Here she is on the back page. Mrs. Penketh, cook at Erddig from 1903 to 1907.
She's a beauty, isn't she? Goodness.
Mistress Louisa was known for being kind to the servants. After all, she supported Nanny Lucy and groomsman Ernest's romance. So it's doubly heartbreaking that while other staff portraits hang proudly downstairs, Ellen's photo is shoved away out of sight.
How did you come upon the story?
Well, we're very lucky because nothing was thrown away from Erddig. We have Louisa's diaries.
Oh, so this is...
Now, there are 49 of these in the archives, and this is when the bombshell explodes, the 9th of September, 1907. And the day before, she's giving a dinner party, she's punting on the lake, everything's wonderful. And then suddenly, here it is.
The Yorks of Erddig were a rare breed, kind and respectful towards their staff. They ruled over a happy household for almost 200 years.
Normally, servants were there to be not seen or heard. But here, it's very, very different.
But it all came crashing down in 1907 when an enormous sum of money went missing.
This is when the bombshell explodes.
Author Tessa Boase and I are leafing through private, rarely seen diaries written by the mistress of the house, Louisa York. And there was little doubt in her mind about where the cash had gone.
Mrs. Penketh, who has been cook here for 5 years, is a regular professional thief. She's stolen and robbed goods and money to the amount of £500.
Right.
There it is. And it kind of gets worse. She gets really vindictive and angry as the days roll by.
£500 back then is almost £30,000 in today's money. A hefty sum, even for the wealthy, but a life-changing windfall for a lowly servant like Ellen Penketh.
Did she look as though she was using it elsewhere? Did her dresses become more beautiful? Did she have a carriage and pair waiting outside?
Not at all. When she was discovered and turfed out of Erddig, she was destitute. She didn't have a penny to her name.
So the money went missing. What happened to it?
It's not a straightforward story. She was trying to cook the books a bit because the Yorks loved entertaining.
So they're being extravagant, but
Yes.
they're telling her she's spending too much.
Exactly.
Oh, right.
She was going to her trusted suppliers and saying, can we just say that this month we spent £20 on meat and instead of the 30 that perhaps they had spent. And she said, I'll make it up next month. And this just got out of hand.
So, in other words, the family could actually have been living beyond their means, and she was trying to cover up that fact, and it came to haunt her.
When Penketh eventually went on trial, things took an unexpected turn. The housekeeper was painted not as a lawless thief, but as an undervalued servant.
She earned £45 a year. Now, for the time, that wasn't a great salary. She might expect to be earning £60–65 doing that job.
So did her counsel point this out in the court case, that she didn't earn much money anyway, they were a mean family?
Oh, yes. He was really contrasting this pathetic salary with this extravagant life that her master and mistress lived.
9 times out of 10, the servant would have been locked up and life in the house would have returned to normal. But in a shocking twist, the jury found housekeeper Ellen Penketh not guilty.
So how unusual was it for a servant to win a case?
I think very unusual indeed. The jury was all male, it was middle class, you had to be a property owner to be on the jury back then. And you would have thought that they would have gone for their own kind.
So she's found to be innocent
Yes.
by the jury. Is that the end of her career, despite the fact she's won the case?
That is the end of her career. She's gone down in history. Even today, she's the thief cook of Erddig.
Their servant walking free was alarming enough for the Yorks, but their troubles didn't stop there. Massive press coverage of the trial left everyone's reputation in tatters.
Tuesday's proceedings, yards and yards of it.
Yeah, it's a verbatim description of what happened in court.
This must have done the family as much, if not more, harm than it did Ellen Penketh.
Yes, they probably really regretted taking this to court.
Dirty linen.
Absolutely dirty linen. Their overdraft, Louisa's spending habits, how much she paid to have her portrait painted, how much the baby's new bonnet cost. It's all in there.
This is a black mark on the family, isn't it?
Absolutely.
How do they get over it?
Well, they start to treat their servants a little bit more carefully. The wages go up, and Philip York, he started doing this PR exercise between him and the servants. He had to believe that they loved him and know that he was looking after them. So he wrote the poems that we see in the corridor.
So the poems, in effect, saying,
Absolutely.
I do love you really. And after all this,
Yes.
you wondered if they really believed it, don't you?
That some of the Yorks' poetry may have been partly driven by guilt is an eye-opener. I think the full truth behind the Penketh trial will never really come to light. In any case, the saga was a painful blip in the otherwise friendly relationship between master and servant here. And it's that uncommon bond that makes the story of Erddig unique and fascinating.
The relaxed attitude of the Yorks allowed the staff to have identities outside their roles in the house. And this saw romance blossom and the staff immortalised in portraits and photographs.
The Yorks didn't always get it right. When faced with the Penketh scandal, protecting their own reputation came before compassion for their staff. But by the standards of their time, the family were pretty forward-thinking bosses.
And by acknowledging their servants' existence and recognising their hard work, the staff of Erddig have lived on and have risen to become the most important aspect of the entire estate.